All right, let's dive into one of the biggest names in the Java universe, the Spring Framework. So, what's the deal with Spring, and why has it been so incredibly popular for so long? Let's break it down. You know that feeling when you're coding? That sense of déjà vu, like you're writing the exact same setup code you just wrote an hour ago? Well, that repetitive boilerplate stuff is a real pain, and it's the exact problem Spring was born to solve. To really get why Spring is such a game changer, we kind of have to travel back in time a bit. We need to look at the old way of building apps to see the headache that developers were dealing with. Just look at this list. Seriously, before frameworks like Spring, if you wanted to do something as simple as talk to a database, you had to manually do all of this. Load the driver, make the connection, create the statement, handle all the potential errors, and, the one everyone forgets, close the connection. And you had to do this every single time. Yeah, this wasn't just a one-time setup. This whole song and dance had to be repeated for pretty much any time you wanted to touch the database. It was slow, it was boring, and it was so easy to make a mistake, like leaving a connection open. There just had to be a better way, right? Well, there was a better way, and it's all built around this really powerful core concept. This is the big idea that makes Spring tick: inversion of control. So what on earth is inversion of control, or IOC for short? Well, it pretty much flips the old way of programming completely on its head. Instead of your code being in charge of everything, creating objects, managing connections, you hand over that control to the framework. You focus on the what, your actual business logic, and the framework takes care of the how, all the wiring behind the scenes. This slide lays it out perfectly. In the old world, on the left, you were the manager. If your car class needed an engine, it was your job to go out and create a new engine for it. But with Spring, on the right, the framework becomes the manager. You just say, hey, this car needs an engine, and Spring goes, got it, and provides one for you. And this quote from the source material just nails it. The heart of Spring is the shift in who's responsible. It's not your job anymore to glue all your classes together. The framework handles that, which frees you up to focus on building the cool features that actually matter. Okay, so if the framework is managing everything, how do we actually tell it what to manage? Well, that brings us to the most fundamental building block in any Spring application, the bean. Don't let the name fool you. A Spring bean is really just a plain old Java object. But it's an object that you've officially handed over to the Spring framework to manage. When you mark something as a bean, you're essentially saying, hey, Spring, you're in charge of this object's entire life. Create it, wire it up, and give it to anyone else who needs it. And Spring is super flexible about how you do this. You can use the modern approach with Java configuration and simple annotations like @bean. You can go old school with XML files if you need to, or my personal favorite, you can just sprinkle annotations like @component on your classes and let Spring automatically find and manage them. Now, Spring is a massive framework. I mean, it's huge, with tools for web development, data access, security, you name it. But here's the absolute key. No matter what part of Spring you're using, it all, and I mean all, revolves around that central concept of beans being managed by the framework. Okay, so we've covered the theory. Inversion of control, beans. Now, let's get to the good part. What's the payoff? What do we actually get from building our apps this way? Remember that horrible 7-step process for talking to a database? Well, Spring gives you something called the JDBC template, and it just makes that a whole problem disappear. You give it your database info in your query, and it handles all that nasty boilerplate, the connections, the exceptions, all of it completely for you. Or how about calling other APIs on the web? That used to be a real chore, but with Spring's REST template, it's incredibly straightforward. You can pull data from a web service with just a couple of lines of code. It's a lifesaver. And Spring doesn't just do little things. It gives you the whole shebang. With Spring MVC, you get a full-fledged, powerful framework for building anything from a simple website to a massive enterprise-level web application, all using that same core philosophy. So let's wrap this up. When you boil it all down, why is Spring still such a dominant force in the Java world today? What's the ultimate takeaway here? It really comes down to these 4 things. First, it's non-invasive. Your code stays clean and focused on your business, not cluttered with framework stuff. It's incredibly versatile, so it plays nicely with almost any other tool you want to use. It supports end-to-end development, covering you from the database all the way up to the user's web browser. And finally, it's lightweight. It's modular, so you only have to pull in the pieces you actually need. So, by taking care of all the complicated, messy plumbing of an application, creating objects and wiring everything together, Spring lets developers focus on what they do best, building awesome software. And that leaves us with one final thought. If the framework is handling all the plumbing for you, what amazing things could you build?